Okay, yeah. So, as you know, that script is, based on this paper by Soti, and this paper basically does a small pond hydrological modeling using meteorological data. So, rainfall is the major driving factor in here, and then um, also depends a lot on the topographic data, DEM, including DEM and all that thing. I don't want to go in very detail on all these mathematical equations and everything, but the basic idea is that uh, you have a rainfall event going on, which which causes this runoff to happen. That sort of adding to that equation, but something that's coming out of the pond are this evaporation as well as the infiltration factor, and balancing this inflow and the outflow is uh, that can help us derive all these area depth relation as well as the volume relationship. So the way we have implemented it over in Earth Engine is my, can you see it, or is this good enough?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good enough.
Okay, so I'm still running using the DEM that you shared. Thank you for sharing that. But for this example, it uses some other pond, and it uses this DEM that we got access to from the Goddard folks. I don't have much background on how detailed background on how this was generated, but from my understanding, they use the uh, optical imagery, and then they do some sort of a photogrammetric approach where a scene is taken from a multiple place, and then that DEM is derived. The issue with this DEM that we have seen so far is there are a lot of trees um, in the middle of the pond. So it's an elevation model, it's not a surface model. So some artifacts in some of the ponds can be seen. Maybe Amil, I think you have more idea on the DEM generation on that side of thing.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think your description was pretty good. As Biplov was saying, the Goddard team had access to a lot of digital globe data. So I believe, from QuickBird, potentially from Iconos, from the different worldview satellites. And so they had essentially stereoscopic imagery or imagery from various angles. And then that is how they were able then to estimate heights based on the stereoscopic techniques, using again imagery taken at different view angles. And then the DEM was generated, however, at a resolution of 2 meters. I believe that probably the original imagery they were using, which is visible and near infrared imagery for band, was probably at 1 meter spatial resolution or so. And then I assume also for just ensuring that they're resampling out noise, they did it at 2 meters. I don't recall if there's additional technical documentation on this, but they also cited that this is based off of techniques from a DM that the same team had worked on for parts of the I believe Antarctica and the Arctic, so polar regions of the world. They had generated these nice DMs using similar types of techniques. Back to you, Biplov.
Thank you, Amil. Yeah, Lisong.
Okay, I have a question about the DEM. Is it a free access DEM?
I I'm not sure. Amil, do you know if it's something freely accessible?
Uh, I I believe that the DM was essentially released to us within the network, and so obviously the folks from CSC are able to use and access the DM. I don't think that it's at least free for us to use internal to the network, just because of it's some kind of complicated access issues with regards to the original Maxar imagery, but the way it was released was said, hey, as long as it's just used within the server network, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Uh, and we actually had some questions around the DM that you shared, Song. So the values in that DM, like, is it a relative DM, or it's something that you have already connected back and it gives the actual height?
It's a DM from the drone images, and
Right.
we extracted with a logiciel. So it was extracted by another colleague. I will ask him more information for the DM.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, we can tag up on that later. But so basically, this script, does this historical uh, modeling of this pond, and it uses the chirps data for that, as a meteorological input. But we're also in talk with Srad and his group and trying to see if we could leverage some of the newer product that they have, but nothing has come out yet, and we'll keep you informed when that happens. So this one particularly is focusing starting from 2021, going backward in time. So for the surface area, it uses the Landsat 8 imagery. So the idea is that we generate a MNDWI, modified normalized difference water index, with Landsat 8 using band 3, which is green, and band 7 SWIR2. And because these ponds are very dry, and they have a very high moisture in them, very low moisture in them, and so we're using this threshold of 0.2. We experimented with 0.3 also, but 0.2 minus 0.2 as a threshold for MNDWI. So one issue that you could see here is this could be a very low threshold, and we might have to adjust this per pond, and depending on per pond or maybe per region. We can discuss more that later, but depending on what threshold you use, you could have an overestimate of this water in those pond. So that's something to be aware of. And then over here, again, it's using that initial water threshold, which is minus 0.2 in this case, and it's just reducing over the entire image, so it's taking the mean and getting those values. And I believe that's something we can see over here. Okay, and that's also something printed over here as an init image. And then here's the main modeling part. These parameters, the water balance parameters, are taken from Soti et al. Paper, and these values, I think they tested out different values, and yeah, based on the values that's shown over here, we're just translating the same thing over in the Earth engine. So it has rainfall, as we know about that, but then there are other parameters like the catchment area, runoff coefficient that determines how quickly your water is flowing, and several other values that goes into it. So I highly recommend you reading this paper. It goes in detail in giving an understanding of how this modeling works for this very small pond and what are some of the limitations that are associated with it. Yes, Lisong.
Okay, Biplov, how did you choose the threshold of this parameter? Like, I see in the paper that the number is between 0.005 and 0.002, and you choose 0.00114. How did you choose this value?
Yeah, so most of these values are based on trial and error, and I think that's also something we can discuss because it's a range. Um, this particularly you're looking at the water loss per day, and I want to say this is all, we're all doing this based on trial and error, and I don't know, like during the earlier version when Kel and Vikalp they did majority of the work and we just modified on that. So maybe Amilo team, you guys have any idea on like was any sort of iterations was done to select that value between that range or anything on that end?
Yeah, I remember there was a session, a long while back with Kel, Vikalp, Rebecca, etc. I believe, yeah, that Kel did, I guess, where it says, I guess line 69, why the 0.00114. I think that Kel did indeed do different tests or something, and I guess empirically arrived at that value. But I guess worst case also, Biplav, maybe we could ask Kel when we see him next week.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, so that, and I would say that that's something that could also change according to your area and the ponds also. But for now, this value seems to be working, and as Amil mentioned, we'll be seeing Kel next week, so we can also ask some of these questions that we have here. Yeah, and then over here we're trying to get the minimum height of the pond based on the DEM we have, and that's just a standard operation that we're doing over here. The SO init is something where so if you look here, the H naught is it's sort of the maximum water height, and these things could change. So last time when we had a meeting with Kim, I remember she saying they're using 2 meters as a maximum water height. In this case, we using 1 meter. Again, this boils down to doing different experiments and also could change with the pond. But in this line of code, sorry, it's someone. Do you have any question here? But in this line of code, it's basically getting those pixels whose elevations are greater than those pond minimum, and then less than or equal to 1 meter height. So it's creating a binary image. So the where, and then this condition basically tells that where this condition is true, you insert this value, which is 1 over here. So this also helps with the trees that could be in the pond that we talked about earlier, because probably the DM values for that pixel where the tree is located would be higher than 1 meter, and this also helps us ensure that we are picking up the right pixels and not including those tree in our further calculation. But again, this could change depending on the pond, and I guess the more information we have on this pond, the better the model would be. And over here in this line of code, it's using so init, which is that condition we just talked about. It's calculating the number of pixels at the DEM scale, and we'll see how that relates back. Over here in line number 100, this is where that total number of pixels is multiplied by the pixel area, so it's giving us the area, again reducing to that particular pond of interest. So at the end, this basically gives us the area of the pond where those water are present. And then over here, we're setting up these conditions. Here there are some comments to help you understand. So A in this case is the pond area at that time t. Remember, we're starting at 2021, so this equation, it basically gives the surface area of the pond where water is actually present during that time. And and then on line 113 is this equation 6 from the paper, where it's solving for the HT based on the initial condition. It's getting the height of that pond, and then on the next line of code, it's basically multiplying that area with the height to get the initial volume estimate. So on this line of code, this is where we are taking our chirps data, our meteorological data, and because it provides the chirps data provides you a daily value for this, has the daily value. So we're doing an accumulation for our time period within this within the chirps value that we are using. So in this case, it's basically getting that daily values that are provided by the chirps data, and then multiplying it with our precipitation scale to get the daily precip value. And since it's doing a mapping function over the entire precipitation value, so you at the end you get image collection. You get an image collection with all the daily accumulated value per day kind of thing in this band, which is called as the precip here. Okay, and then over here, so the init IAP is the weighted summation of the past daily precipitation amounts used to indicate the amount of water in the soil. So soil moisture component is calculated over here, starting with the chirp. So this sort of goes back 7 days in time and sees what the initial soil condition or initial amount of water in the soil is. And I think that's something mapped over here. Again, so the chirps is in what scale it chirps in. I think it's does anyone remember top of their head what scale the chirps it's in this area? So these pixels anyways are indicative of that chirp scale. Okay, so now we have these initial conditions that goes into our model that we can then use um, depending on how much rainfall it's getting to calculate the other days. And this is where that that uses this initial condition to calculate the amount of forcing initially. So here it's going 1 day back in time, using your precipitation scale to convert it into to apply that scaling factor that goes into it, and then basically solving the equation that's mentioned in the Soti's paper, where it's taking your initial volume, and then where it's creating this image where it has the initial volume as well as the initial area component, soil moisture component, all in one image. So this is the image that comes out that has the bands that has all this initial component of precipitation, volume, area, height, and then the soil moisture component in it. And then we have this function which is the accum volume function that basically extract out the last image. So this would be like the last image in that list, and if you think it physically, it's about getting the previous day estimate and then using the present day precipitation to calculate the next present day estimate of the volume. So again, it's again going back to that paper and solving these all these equations that's mentioned here. So getting that initial condition based on 1 day in the past. The equation 6 is solving for this area, and then the equation 7 uses all those derived values to calculate the volume of the pond at the time t. So that's basically what's going on here. The idea is you take the precipitation, you initialize, you get the initial conditions based off of which then you depending on if you're using it in a forecast mode, depending on your forecasted precip value, you take that, but then you also link with the previous day to get your volume estimate moving forward in time in a forecast mode. So that's everything that's going on this accumulate volume script. So that function is coming from this daily precip one. So this if you look at the daily precip, it's again it's doing a hindcast or a historical forecasting. So remember we started from 2021 1 and then it goes like 1 year into so this is our forecast days, so it goes like 1 year into the future, because the precip data is already available for 2021, but if you have this forecast source value or any of the rainfall value that you have, then you can use it in a forecast mode. So this particular image collection, which is filter, has 365 days. It's basically going forward in time 365 and doing all those calculation based off of the initial conditions that we have set up here. So this is the model out image collection. So each of these image collection each of these image in this image collection has these 5 bands associated with it, which gives you the area. Again, the area is based up of the MNDWI that we saw earlier, the height information, and then the volume information, as well as the precipitation and your initial moisture condition. This particular line of code is basically getting those area, and then it just telling you how much of percentage of the pond is occupied by the water. So it's just getting the total area of the pond, dividing it by the area that it's predicting over here. You probably, when you're running for a new pond or a new DEM, you'll probably have to export them, all of them. So when I uncommented this line of code, and if I run it again, this will start generating all these tasks over here that you'll have to go and run them. At some point we might try to translate this in Python, so it's easier to run these tasks without having to go and run them individually. But for now, for the testing purpose, and until we settle on the final script version, I guess you can, if you're trying for new ponds, then you can just go ahead and start running these tasks. So when you run these tasks, there's this asset ID that you'll have to change. In this particular instance, I have already gone and ran all that 365 days forecast. So if you run this script, it should run as it is. Those image collection should be shared with you, and these are over here. It's taking a long time to load. Anyways, so once you run that, you have all these model output for that entire year. In this case, again, depending on the meteorological forecast data that we have, that could vary, and that could also probably also change the accuracy associated with the forecast. So if your meteorological rainfall have an accuracy of, let's say, 0.8 for the next 2 days, and then your accuracy decreases over time for the next 7 or 10 days, you might also expect a similar change in accuracy with this forecasted volume component for your pond as well. And once you export that, in this line of code, we're just going and getting those image collection, because you remember this model out has 5 bands in them, including volume, area, height. So now we can go back and draw these area versus time curve, as well as the area versus height curve, or the volume versus time curve. So and if you try to correlate this with your precipitation component, you will kind of see a similar pattern where your volume would be increasing depending on how much rainfall it's getting for that time period. Yeah, so again, same thing. In this line of code, we just uh, fitting the area. We're basically creating a linear we're doing a linear regression of this fitted area, and then we're trying to see how much does it follow that trend. And this is the fitted area on the y-axis, and the area that's calculated from the meteorological parameters on the x-axis, and we're just calculating some RMSE value for that. Yeah, and I guess this is what we have until now. uh, we I actually have been running using the DM and the pond that you shared, Lisong, but it's just running and I don't have anything to share at this point. So I'll stop there. If you have any questions or anything, just let us know. Yeah.
Biplov,
Yes. Hi.
can you explain more in the details how you do the fitted volume and the fitted area, please?
Yes. Just give me a second, just navigating here. Yeah, so the area height curve is this one. It's basically plotting that values from the image collection, height on the x-axis and the area on the y-axis. This did this a while back, so let me go back and see. Okay, so the fitting, the way fitting is done over here is so you can think of this as a logarithmic curve, right? It kinds of resembles in that in that way. So again, if you go to this paper, again here it's again showing the same thing. It's just have this logarithmic curve that Soti talks about, like how this water area and the water height links to this logarithmic curve. And this is true for most of the case, because even if you look at the water height and the volume, volume meaning the discharge, volumetric flow of water per second per time, most of the literature would point you to using this logarithmic curve. And this also links back to the rating curve. So rating curve is something that converts your water level height information into the volume component. And unless your channel is eroded, or there has been a massive flood, or your and depending on your Manning's roughness coefficient, most of these most of the ponds, most of the stream follows this logarithmic relation between the water and the area. So we've in this one we've just tried to use that basic theory. So we have the height, area, all these information that we have extracted out, and then we calculate the log values of each of them. So in a linear so if you're looking at this particular one, right, so your area equals to some constant times your height, power alpha. So this is basically your logarithmic equation. And when you reduce that, when you take a log on both side, your equation would change to something like this, where your log a equals to alpha comes in the beginning, alpha times log h plus log c. So this is very similar to a linear regression of the form y equals to your slope x plus your intercept component. See, right? So the fitting is done in that way. So assuming that it should follow a logarithmic equation, we then go back in time, we then go back and calculate the dependent component, which is your log a in this case. So it's basically calculating that area, which is the same area that you see over here in the area versus height curve, and then the fitting is based on that logarithmic fitting values, and that's the RMSE value that you're seeing. Same goes for your volume as well as the height component. We discussed this just now. So your volume and the height also follows that relationship, and we again go back, again use the same approach here, where we're fitting your log volume with your log height component and then getting those fitted values, and this is where those RMSE values are coming from. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. I have also another question about the accum shifts function. I don't see where you define it. I don't know if it's a function you have in another script.
Sorry, which function are you talking about?
Accum shifts, the function you use for the daily precipitation.
Daily precipitation.
Okay, here we have accum shifts.
Oh, accum chirps. Okay, yeah, this function is in here, line 521.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so
It's
this
below
function
the.
is basically accumulating all the chars value. I mean, this is a very generic function, so you could pass
Okay.
in any image collection and it will give you that accumulated value over that time, start and the end date.
Okay, okay. I will go through this part of the script. So I think that I don't have any question,
uh,
but I will go through the script again, and if I have a question, I will send you an email.
yes, that would be great.